This is Land of Havilah, 1 Chronicles 23. In King David's final orders, the last orders he gave before he died, he was planning on how the Levites should be organized to serve in Yahweh's house. Yahweh's house wasn't built yet, but David was making plans for it. Verse 1. Now David was old and full of days, and he made Solomon his son king over Israel. He gathered together all the princes of Israel with the priests and the Levites. The Levites were counted from 30 years old and upward, and their number by their polls, man by man, was 38,000. David said, of these, 24,000 were to oversee the work of Yahweh's house. 6,000 were officers and judges, 4,000 were doorkeepers, and 4,000 praised Yahweh with the instruments which I made for giving praise. Comment: in verses 1 and 2, David gathered the leaders of Israel together for the purpose of organizing the Levites. Originally, the Levites' job was to carry the tabernacle from place to place, Numbers chapter 4, but the tabernacle is going to be retired as soon as Solomon builds the temple. Thus, the Levites' duties need to be updated. In verse 3, there were 38,000 Levites willing to serve. Of course, a Levite is a descendant of Jacob's third son, Levi. Of all the Levites, only the ones descended from Levi's great-grandson Aaron were eligible to be priests, but all Levites were eligible to serve a supporting role in Yahweh's service, Deuteronomy 18:7. In verses 3 to 5, the breakdown of the new duties is that 32,000 of them will be serving at the temple, which sounds like a lot, but most of them won't be full-time. They'll be coming and going from wherever they might live in Israel to the temple in rotation, 1 Chronicles 24:30. More details about their duties are coming in the next 3 chapters. In verse 4, the remaining 6,000 Levites will serve as judges and officers. It's obvious that the priests supervising them will have a lot of manpower, a lot of Levite manpower at their disposal, which is according to the role Yahweh originally intended for the Levites to support the priests and serve under their leadership, Numbers 3:9 and 8:19. Coming up, the text will give Levi's family tree down to his great-grandsons, who lived roughly at the time of the Exodus, Aaron and Moses being 2 of those great-grandsons. In David's time, a Levite's male-to-male ancestry, going back to those great-grandsons, will determine his assignment of duty, his place in the rotation of service. Verse 6, David divided them into divisions according to the sons of Levi, Gershon, Kohath, and Merari. Of the Gershonites, Ladan and Shimei. The sons of Ladan, Jehiel the chief, Zetham and Joel, 3. The sons of Shimei, Shelomoth, Haziel, and Haran, 3. These were the heads of the fathers' households of Ladan. The sons of Shimei, Jahath, Zina, Jeush, and Beriah. These 4 were the sons of Shimei. Jahath was the chief and Ziza the second, but Jeush and Beriah didn't have many sons. Therefore they became a father's house in one reckoning. The sons of Kohath, Amram, Izhar, Hebron, and Uzziel, 4. The sons of Amram, Aaron, and Moses. And Aaron was separated that he should sanctify the most holy things, he and his sons, forever, to burn incense before Yahweh, to minister to him, and to bless in his name forever. But as for Moses, the man of God, his sons were named among the tribe of Levi. The sons of Moses, Gershom and Eleazar. The sons of Gershom, Shebuel the chief. The sons of Eleazar were Rehabiah the chief, and Eleazar had no other sons, but the sons of Rehabiah were very many. The sons of Izhar, Shelomith the chief. The sons of Hebron, Jeriah the chief, Amariah the second, Jahaziel the third, and Jochamiam the fourth. The sons of Uzziel, Micah the chief, and Ishiah the second. The sons of Merari, Mali, and Mushi. The sons of Mali, Eleazar, and Kish. Eleazar died and had no sons, but daughters only, and their brothers, the sons of Kish, took them as wives. The sons of Mushi, Mali, Eder, and Jeremoth, 3. Comment: in verse 6, Levi's sons, Gershom, Kohath, and Merari, are familiar. They make the 3 major divisions of Levites. The Levites descending from them are less familiar, but of course Moses and Aaron stand out. Verses 8 through 10 are confusing with regard to the sons of Shimei because the list of Shimei's sons in verse 9 bears no resemblance to the second list of his sons in verse 10, so it's a head-scratcher. In verse 13, only the priests could burn incense at the golden altar of the holy place. 1 Chronicles 23:13. Coming up, sons should be more accurately translated descendants. Verse 24. These were the sons of Levi after their fathers' houses, even the heads of the fathers' houses of those who were counted individually in the number of names by their polls, who did the work for the service of Yahweh's house, from 20 years old and upward. For David said, Yahweh the God of Israel has given rest to his people, and he dwells in Jerusalem forever. Also the Levites will no longer need to carry the tabernacle and all its vessels for its service. For by the last words of David, the sons of Levi were counted from 20 years old and upward. Comment: in verse 24, the men named in the genealogy were considered, quote, heads of the fathers' houses, end quote. The Levites in David's time could trace their male-to-male line of ancestry back to one of these family heads, back to around the time of the Exodus. In verses 24 and 27, Levites from 20 years old and up were counted, whereas in verse 3 it says 30 years old and up. The reason for it being 30 in verse 3 and then 20 later on in the chapter isn't clear. And Yahweh's original description of the roles of the Levites in Numbers chapter 3, service was from the ages of 30 to 50. Since David has the authority from Yahweh to make reassignments of Levitical duty, it stands to reason he also has authority under Yahweh to make other changes as well, such as age of service. In verses 25 and 26, David said, Yahweh has given rest to his people, end quote, meaning the children of Israel aren't desert nomads anymore like they were in the Exodus, so the Levites aren't occupied carrying the tabernacle from place to place anymore. This is thanks to Yahweh establishing them in the land. In verse 27, the reassignment of duties was, quote, by the last words of David, end quote. This doesn't necessarily indicate that these assignments were literally his last words, but more probably his last official words, his last order of official business. Yahweh's service was the last thing on David's mind. He ended well. Regarding the Levites, verse 28, for their office was to wait on the sons of Aaron for the service of Yahweh's house, in the courts and in the rooms and in the purifying of all holy things, even the work of the service of God's house, for the showbread also, and for the fine flour for a meal offering, whether of unleavened wafers, or of that which is baked in the pan, or of that which is soaked, and for all measurements of quantity and size, and to stand every morning to thank and praise Yahweh, and likewise in the evening, and to offer all burnt offerings to Yahweh on the Sabbaths, on the new moons, and on the set feasts, in number according to the ordinance concerning them, continually before Yahweh, and that they should keep the duty of the tent of meeting, the duty of the holy place, and the duty of the sons of Aaron, their brothers, for the service of Yahweh's house. Comment in verse 28, the Levites waited on the sons of Aaron, meaning they were under the authority of the priests, doing whatever the priest assigned them, which is according to the law of Moses, Numbers 8:19. In verses 28 through 32, these assignments mostly had to do with the tabernacle and temple service. For example, a lot of labor went into the animal sacrifices. The sacrifices had to be killed, skinned, gutted, divided, and the parts of it washed, all according to Yahweh's detailed protocol in the book of Leviticus. The various grain offerings had to be prepared according to Levitical protocol. The random offerings brought by rank-and-file Israelites had to be handled, stored, and accounted for properly according to what it was. The showbread had to be prepared a certain way. The treasury had to be kept. Animals destined for sacrifice had to be raised and shepherded. There was music of thanks and praise to Yahweh every morning and evening. Each new moon, Sabbath, and feast of Yahweh called for special sacrifices. By command of Yahweh, some of the work was for priests only, but the priests couldn't do their jobs unless the Levites were setting it all up for them, doing the vast majority of the labor. 1 Chronicles 24 is next.